Welcome to the debate. We are diving today into, well, a truly staggering economic and social issue, actually. It's one most people experience firsthand, but maybe rarely quantify: the systematic failure of gift giving. Our source material details this as the $9.5 billion problem, and it stems from Americans wasting over $10.1 billion annually on unwanted gifts. And crucially, the research calculates that the average gift instantly loses about 16.1% of its value the moment it's opened, what economists call deadweight loss. That's money simply vanishing because the gift choice was inefficient.
Right, a huge number. And it really gets you thinking.
Exactly. So, the central question before us is fundamental. How do we fundamentally restructure this really flawed system? The source material lays out two dominant evidence-based paths: either adopting specific scientific behavioral strategies, focusing on utility, experiences, wish lists, or alternatively, fully outsourcing the selection process to AI recommendation systems. Now, given the sheer scale of human cognitive failure exposed here, I'm going to argue that the superior solution lies in the objective efficiency and, frankly, the scalability provided by AI-driven technological outsourcing.
Okay, and while your focus on that enormous dollar figure is compelling, I think it fundamentally misidentifies the primary purpose of this exchange. Gift giving, it's not merely a transactional issue of utility, is it? It's a relational act. And if we treat it only as an efficiency problem, well, we risk solving the financial waste, sure, but potentially destroying the underlying social value. The source material also provides incredibly effective, high-efficacy behavioral strategies. These are strategies rooted in psychological research, and they maintain the essential human element, things like intention, effort, and understanding. So I maintain that adopting these specific human strategies is the critical and ultimately the more enduring solution.
I appreciate the focus on the relational aspect, I really do. But we are dealing with a crisis driven by widespread, deeply ingrained human cognitive failure. Our source material confirms 5 major systematic reasons why we fail, proving that this isn't just about, not trying hard enough. For instance, we routinely fall victim to the psychological distance problem. We, the givers, were focused on the immediate short-term impression, that unwrapping moment. We prioritize desirability, but the recipient, who actually has to live with the item, prioritizes feasibility and long-term utility. So we buy a complicated high-tech gadget when maybe they just needed a simple, reliable charger. We also get caught in the wow effect trap, prioritizing that immediate emotional flash over what the recipient will actually use 6 months down the line. Traditional, unguided human selection, burdened by these biases, well, it has only a 27% success rate, according to the research.
27%, yeah, that's bad.
It's terrible. And this level of failure is just too systemic for simple self-correction, I think. The only practical and scalable solution is technological outsourcing. AI completely eliminates that projection bias. It analyzes upwards of 47 factors of recipient preference against long-term utility data, rather than just relying on our gut feelings or, misguided creativity. And the data confirms its power. AI recommendations boast an 80% success rate. That's nearly 3 times better than humans. When one platform reports, 98.62% recipient satisfaction, what we have to recognize that human intention, however good, is simply inferior to objective data analysis in achieving the actual goal of long-term utility.
Okay, 27% success is genuinely abysmal. I grant you that. And I agree those biases you mentioned are potent. But why are we leaping immediately to technological abdication, essentially, before rigorously applying the high-efficacy behavioral strategies that the very same research offers us? The science suggests the core failure is a profound self-focus on the part of the giver. Givers prioritize desirability, as you said, but they're also too focused on themselves, their perceived sacrifice, their creativity, their idea of thoughtfulness. The relationship signaling paradox confirms this perfectly. Givers actively avoid requested gifts because they think, somehow, a requested item signals less thoughtfulness. when in fact recipients view requested gifts as more thoughtful. The solution, then, is discipline, not deletion of the human element. Following a wish list, for example, results in a dramatic plus 60% appreciation. 60%. Choosing experiences over material items strengthens relationships 2 times more. These methods, they force the giver to stop projecting and actually cultivate what researchers call interpersonal interest, that genuine effort to understand the recipient's perspective. It's why the research suggests women often outperform men in gift selection. Just outsourcing the choice to an algorithm, well, it risks masking this underlying relational failure. It allows givers to completely bypass the self-reflection needed to truly know the recipient.
I understand the desire for that interpersonal investment, but we have to return to the $10.1 billion economic loss driven by these disappointing outcomes. We are trying to eliminate that disappointment. The overwhelming data, and it is overwhelming, 80% AI success versus 27% human success. It simply cannot be ignored when you're addressing such massive inefficiency. That 16.1% dead weight loss calculation, it proves humans are collectively just terrible resource allocators in this specific context. AI succeeds precisely because it is cold, clinical, objective. It removes the smile-seeking hypothesis trap. This trap is what compels givers to choose items that generate intense, immediate emotion, like, say, a fleeting bouquet of flowers or some novelty item, even when the recipient explicitly needs something practical and long-lasting, maybe like a sturdy gardening tool. AI focuses on maximizing utility based on demonstrated preference over time.
It ignores a temporary emotional feedback loop that consistently steers human givers wrong.
That's a powerful argument for utility optimization, I'll give you that. But you seem to be assuming utility is the sole or maybe even the primary metric of success in a gift exchange. Have you considered the, let's call them, hidden relational costs of pure optimization? The source material explicitly shows that bad gifts, or gifts perceived as low effort, negatively affect the recipient's view of the relationship's future and their perceived similarity to their partner. Now, if the relationship itself is damaged, that's a kind of relational deadweight loss that an algorithm designed purely for product matching just cannot account for. And the strategy of choosing experiential gifts like concert tickets, a cooking class, maybe a weekend away, that isn't just a high-utility choice in some abstract sense. It's a profound relational investment. UCLA research showed these strengthen bonds 2 times more than material goods. Why? Specifically because the shared consumption generates more intense positive emotions and, crucially, creates shared memories. Now, does AI prioritize creating shared memories, or does it simply find the highest-rated vacuum cleaner on Amazon that fits the recipient's demographic? I suspect it's the latter. AI might eliminate projection, yes, but it doesn't explicitly guarantee the relational depth achieved by a thoughtfully chosen experience, one that requires the giver to assess the recipient's emotional and social needs, not just their material ones.
Well, AI can and does recommend experiences, actually, and it can certainly enforce requested gifts simply by eliminating the giver's inherent bias against following the list. It's not about deleting the human, it's about giving the human the correct tool to execute their intention effectively. Look at the root cause again. It's often the giver's arrogance, or at least their cognitive distortion. The science proves givers believe requested gifts are less thoughtful, yet recipients value them more. That is a cognitive distortion that has to be overcome. Behavioral strategies, well, they require constant, conscious effort to fight decades of ingrained bias. AI simply provides the mechanism to bypass that bias instantly. It enforces the desired outcome, the requested utility, without all the internal struggle.
But bypassing the struggle entirely removes the very thing recipients often value, the demonstration of effort and that interpersonal interest we talked about. When a giver uses AI, they aren't confronting their failure to understand. They're just outsourcing their responsibility. The true solution, I think, is forcing givers to confront and change their instincts. If we can simply discipline givers to stop focusing on the price tag, which, as studies show, has zero correlation with recipient appreciation, or force them to adhere to that explicit wish list, well, we solve a huge chunk, maybe 60%, of the problem with zero technology. That data point you cited, 140 million Americans receiving unwanted gifts despite massive giver effort, it proves that effort guided by bias is useless. The behavioral solution forces the giver's effort to be guided by the recipient's actual preference.
Effort does not equal success. I have to repeat that. The fact that 140 million unwanted gifts were given, averaging $72 each, proves that good intentions are entirely insufficient on their own. The reason AI succeeds is precisely because it analyzes data and preferences without the human tendency to project personal taste, or, critically, to overvalue the giver's sacrifice. Remember that Stanford research from 2009? It showed that givers focus heavily on their sacrifice, how much time, effort, or money they spent. Believing this inherently translates to higher perceived thoughtfulness. It doesn't. AI doesn't care about your sacrifice. It cares about the recipient's long-term enjoyment. AI is really the logical conclusion of the scientific goal here, focusing objectively on utility in 6 months, irrespective of the giver's misguided sense of required creativity or, frankly, self-congratulatory effort.
I'm still not convinced that AI can handle the truly complex situations where human judgment seems vital. When we look at the categories where humans fail the worst, like clothing, a 43% failure rate, you said, or home goods, a 33% failure, the failure is often due to extremely personal factors. Fit, style, existing decor, things that rely on nuanced social context. Can an algorithm really get that right consistently?
That is exactly why AI is necessary, not optional. These high failure categories prove that even supposedly safe choices are incredibly high risk for the typical biased human giver. AI excels here precisely because it can combine multiple, disparate data sources, transaction history, social media cues, express preferences on wish lists, to analyze factors human givers routinely miss. If the item is complex and highly personalized, AI's ability to significantly reduce that 43% failure rate is an absolute necessity if we want to stop hemorrhaging financial value.
But the solution for maximum utility in many cases is incredibly simple, requires absolutely no data mining, and is purely behavioral. Cash. Remember the Harvard research? It showed that recipients value cash more than any specific requested gift. More. Yet givers stubbornly resist this option because they view cash as impersonal. Again, focusing on their perception, their feeling, rather than the recipient's clearly stated preference. These high-impact behavioral strategies, giving cash, rigidly following the list, choosing an experience, they're cost-free. They require only discipline. They also implicitly force adherence to cultural norms, like, say, opening gifts privately in cultures like Japan, which reduces the social discomfort that sometimes fuels the need for these complex, flashy, but ultimately unwanted gifts. If we simply mandate or strongly encourage the 3 or 4 proven behavioral corrections, we could solve the vast majority of that $10.1 billion problem without relying on a technology that, I still argue, may not fully capture the crucial relational aspect.
Mandating discipline has failed historically, though, hasn't it? The system, our habits, they're almost designed against it. We have to assess the results on a grand scale. If the goal is maximizing utility and virtually guaranteeing acceptance, the 80% success rate of AI, which is, nearly 60 percentage points better than the human average, is the clear, rational choice. We are systematically flawed in our approach to gift giving. Technological outsourcing provides the highest confidence interval for success and is, I believe, the most responsible, effective, and economically sensible path forward to overcome our inherent cognitive flaws and reduce that truly staggering deadweight loss.
I absolutely agree that the efficiency offered by technological outsourcing is substantial, maybe even tempting. But the goal of gift giving, at its heart, extends beyond mere economic utility. It is fundamentally about relational connection and demonstrated thoughtfulness. We have proven scientific strategies, experiential gifts, strict adherence to requests, that achieve this with proven relational success, that plus 60% increase in appreciation, relationships that are rated 2 times stronger. The most enduring solution, I believe, requires the giver to actually exercise true interpersonal interest and adopt the science rather than simply eliminating the human element from the decision process entirely.
The numbers, though, the sheer scale of failure, prove that humans, when left to their own devices, seem incapable of consistently demonstrating that thoughtfulness effectively.
But applying the scientific strategies forces the human to channel their effort correctly, maintaining the sincerity, the meaning of the exchange.
Well, both paths presented in the source material certainly offer clear, evidence-based ways forward, whether that's through optimizing the giver's behavior or optimizing the selection process itself. Ultimately, the listener is left to weigh the value of guaranteed high-level efficiency against the essential, if often flawed, value of personal effort in this very complex human exchange.